I have spent over £2,000 on bike fits over the years, and this is what I've learned. In the past few years, bike fitting has become an essential part of buying a new bike. It means that most people nowadays have had a bike fit at some point in their life. But it wasn't always like that. When I started out cycling, a long time ago now, bike fits were done by the oldest guy in the cycling club, and he'd just do it by eye. He'd tell you your saddle height was too low, your saddle height was too high, and that was it. However, nowadays it's all motion capture this, lasers this, got to get everything perfectly level, got to make sure that your knee angle is exactly 69 degrees. But when we look at the pros, we see this just isn't true. Take a look at Mathieu van der Poel's saddle height here, and now let's look at Chris Froome's saddle height when he was winning the Tour de France. As you can see, there's a massive difference here, and yet these guys are both operating at the top of the sport. So with all this motion capture and lasers, bike fitters seem to be missing one key point that bothered me for years with my cycling comfort. And if you don't know this one thing, you could be left with a big bill and a useless pair of cycling shoes after your next bike fit. What is every cyclist bothered with? Numb feet, sore knees, saddle discomfort. Every cyclist complains about this at some point in their cycling career. But what if I told you they all started with the same thing? The pair of shoes you're wearing. See, cycling shoes aren't like normal shoes. The last comes in a variety of curvatures to match the individuality of your own skeletal foot structure. There's arch support that's built into the rigid carbon sole of the shoe that is much less forgiving than regular running shoes. If you have feet like mine, you might have been sold a pair of shoes that look something like this. A very wide shoe. Now, a wide shoe can be great for really heavy set, big rugby player types. But if you're quite skinny like me and you're a cyclist, this is not necessarily the shoe that you might need. The problems you're suffering from can actually be due to pronation rather than the width of your foot. And this is why this is an essential part of a bike fit that not many bike fitters are talking about. See, a shoe like this has a massive curve down the center, which means that the majority of your foot is actually on this side of the shoe. If you suffer from a numb pinky toe due to pronation of the foot, i.e. your foot is twisting out like this over the pedal stroke, then the numbness is caused by your pinky toe rotating into the upper of the shoe. This is not actually due to the width necessarily of the shoe. If you go to a bike fair complaining about numb feet, they likely will sell you a wider pair of shoes. And as I said, this can be great for some people, but for some people this just isn't the answer. I now ride in a much narrower pair of shoes, and as you can see, the last on this shoe here is much straighter than the very curved last on this shoe here. Another problem with being oversold wide shoes for somebody who doesn't have wide feet is the heel cup being way too wide. A lot of people might say, a wide heel cup, why is that such a big problem? Well, when you're cycling, the last thing you want is to lose control of your rear heel. If you lose control of the heel, you'll likely pronate at the back of the foot, and this can lead to quite bad knee pain over the long term. When you next go to see a bike fair, make sure that your shoes are tested to make sure there isn't excess material at the forefoot. If there's excess material at the forefoot, your foot can end up washing around inside. If your forefoot is able to wash around on the inside of the shoe, this leads to an unstable pedaling platform and can again lead to pronation and worse knee pain. Finally, a point that amazes me that no bike fair talks about this, but carbon shoes actually have a degree of arch support built into the last of the shoe. This means if you go out and buy an aftermarket orthotic, the degree of arch support is actually changed by the rigid sole of the shoe and the arch support that's built into it. All this is to say, before you go for your next bike fit visit, I highly recommend you go and have your feet assessed properly by either a podiatrist or an orthotist. They'll be able to tell you the structural curvature of your feet, whether you have a tendency to pronate, and also how much you benefit from aftermarket orthotics and the arch support that they can provide that just doesn't come standard in cycling shoes, such as these very flimsy insoles that came with my cycling shoes. However, there is one key point you need to make sure of before you go and visit an orthotist, and that is that not all orthotists or podiatrists are trained in cycling shoes. Therefore, they might not be aware of the arch support that's built into the pair of shoes that you're looking to buy. They may not be aware of how wide or narrow certain brands of cycling shoes are, and they most likely won't know about the cleat positioning. So rather than needing to take along with you 3 different pairs of shoes like I have done in the past, it's worth reading up about the pair of shoes you next buy, checking for width, how far back the cleats can be positioned on the shoe, how much arch support is built into the insole, and also potentially the heel cup fitting if this is something you know that you suffer from personally. I hope this video was helpful and potentially helped you address some of the cycling pains you've been suffering from. I really can't speak highly enough of the custom orthotics I've had made for me. By going through the process of having custom orthotics made, I've been able to assess the cycling shoes I've been using for the past couple of years. I've been cycling for over 16 years and I've tried basically a pair of shoes from every different brand. And now I've basically addressed all of my comfort problems on the bike. Hopefully, as time goes on, bike fitters will become more aware of this problem and be able to give better fitting advice, because we all want to see people suffering less pain on and off the bike.